Yo, dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up with a quick little tutorial / product review. We got the Army Painter brand new wet palette. It's only 25 bucks. First impressions without even using it, solid, high quality. Like the way it's wrapped, like the way it's presented. I like the feel of this plastic. It's obviously custom made. It's got their logo on it. All these make me feel cool. I like how it's black on black with the little red sliver. Oh, the red sliver is actually a paintbrush rack. All these things make me happy. Now, straight up, I do currently use a wet palette. I think they're very important to the modern day hobbyist for getting that glaze technique, getting some of that wet blending technique down. So I'm going to rip out this little piece of foam. Wet palettes traditionally use a little piece of foam to hold the water and a little parchment over it. First impression is I don't like how it was shipped, bent over like that. Only time will tell if that actual ridge, that bend line works itself out over time. Who knows? Ultimately, it's not like a big deal. Just something to be irritated about for no reason, because that's life, right? So there's a lot of advantages to using a wet palette. It keeps the paints you're working on in kind of a save mode, right? Like you can save as Sword Tutorial 1, step away, have lunch, maybe even go to bed, wake up, and your paints are still there. Maybe with a little bit of work, they reactivate perfectly. But you see, I'm laying down a little bit of parchment. They provide 50 sheets of that. I like to hold it down so it flexes. Some people say cool water. Some people say distilled water. I don't give a shit about any of that. I just use water at the tap. And I'm going to use a little of this dark blue, a little bit of black. We're going to mix up sort of a kind of a metal color. And we're going to just do a really quick, super fast sword workup. Okay. And we're going to actually set up all our colors. I'm going to close the wet palette, walk away for a little while, have lunch, actually IRL, come back, and we're going to try to paint with what we have. First though, I'm going to lay down the base coat because I would do that. This is our base right here. I'm going to lay it down. Boom. And while this dried, I set up the other paints, walked away for about 45 minutes, came back, and then we actually painted the model. So just a real quick couple thin coats. We're going to put Necromancer Cloak down, which is a gray, and eventually we're going to use just an off-white standard Army Painter workup. Lay it all down, get our mixes up, working really thin. Like I said, with a wet palette, you can work thin, your paints won't dry out. You could also create a thick pull off on the left, do some quick edge highlights. Solid stuff, okay? I recommend a wet palette. Some people make their own out of Tupperware, whatever. I don't. I've literally never done that. I hate that. So I'm going to do a quick crossfade. I'm going to block in the first mid-tone. Just a quick opposing theory. It's not even that realistic. Just super quick. This is a Russian miniature I have a few of these. I like them for painting tutorials and doing little private classes, and we're just going to do a quick workup on this really flat sword. We're going to let it dry for just a second, kind of glaze in a mid-tone using just these two colors, that gray, the blue, the black, and then we're going to start adding a little bit more of the gray in its raw dog form, kind of reinforce the gleam, let it just look crazy. We're just going to sketch it in slightly aggressive, but recognize these are really thin. Even though it looks super aggressive, it's not. So we're going to be just kind of all over the place. A little bit of wet blending, a little bit of glazing. I've got dozens of glazing tutorials. And I'm just going with my heart, trying to feel out the wet palette, see what happens. Just sketching in an aggressive edge highlight with a little bit of the off-white color. I love the way that looks. I'm just going to reinforce with a couple of fake-ass, shiny-ass, nonsensical gleaming effects. I might even add a little bit of more matte black off on one side just to reinforce some of the gleam. Like I said, I don't give a shit about light. I'm just having fun playing with the wet palette, being an artist. So far, I'm happy. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's keeping my paints looking good. I'm just going to drag a little bit more highlight here. This is a soft glaze, really thin paint. Going to let it look really nice with that opposing gleaming effect. I'm going to drag a quick white line across the center. And then maybe just thin it down a little bit, but at the end of the day, here it is. It's a super quick workup using the new Army Painter wet palette. Like I'm going to say, I like it. I would recommend it. I could say that 100%. And here's what my paints look like after a few hours of closing it up, opening it back up. You can see there's a little separation, but that's more the paint than the wet palette. Army Painter doesn't hide the fact that their paints are for getting it done, this line of paints. So, but with just a little bit of swirling around with some moisture, totally usable. Solid product. We're going to close it back up, put my paint brushes back in it, and they even give you a little band that you could wrap around it so you get to take this with you to the hobby shop and do your painting. Yo, play on, players.